right, so we here have a very interesting video here from StyxHexenHammer. Now, this video is hilariously titled, Crazed the Leftists Still Want to Impeach Trump. So, Styx is a big Trump fan. He's a pretty big Trump apologist. I think you would argue against that, but I would certainly argue that. I think that that's kind of true regardless of, whatever he were to state. He finds himself apologizing for Trump in a lot of different situations. So that's kind of what he does. So impeachment is an interesting issue that's been brought up because the Mueller report was released, and the Mueller report talked pretty in depth about obstruction of justice and the investigation into obstruction of justice. Now, what I want to tell you about the Mueller report is this is what really the bedrock of the Mueller report is this. Donald Trump will either be found not guilty or not guilty. So that means that basically, I guess the Office of Legal Counsel basically has the guidelines of a sitting president cannot be indicted. So with that bedrock of not being able to be indicted, he's not going to, there's no way for him to say that Donald Trump is guilty of a crime. It's, not possible because he was adhering to those guidelines of not being able to be prosecuted as a sitting president, indicted as a sitting president. And he says in there that those immunities are removed once he's out of office. And so that's why a lot of people like Preet Bharara are basically saying, who, by the way, is not a partisan dude, he's going after Andrew Cuomo. So what that means is there's actually also a pretty decent chance that Mueller afterwards will be able to start talking about stuff. I don't know if the grand jury will start doing things, but that there will be some cases made against him. Certainly there's a garden variety, as Ro kind of put it, of financial crimes that Donald Trump has committed. So this video is titled "Crazed the Leftists Still Want to Impeach Trump." Let's check this out.
All right, everyone, it's very funny because the left is still rambling about impeachment right now. It's like, at some point you're going to have to give up the shtick because there's nothing impeachable in the Mueller report.
That's false. Obstruction of justice, it's literally begged by Mueller for Congress to decide and to investigate whether or not he obstructed justice. He's literally begging Congress to do that, so that's completely false. And honestly, the comment he makes about Congress and having the power to basically be a check and balance, it almost feels like he's trying to be like, hey, Congress, he did obstruct justice. That's what it personally feels like when I, read that part.
The Mueller report exonerates Trump of the only main charge that you ever made against him. The idea of obstruction is sort of the low-hanging fruit that they've gone to.
No, obstruction of justice is not a low-hanging fruit. It's a really important principle that exists. And any president who commits obstruction of justice, whether it be Democrat or Republican, should be really in the grand scheme of things, definitely should be removed from office. Because using the power that you have to be above the law and to obstruct investigations into crimes that you committed is a very, very serious thing. That's not low-hanging fruit even in the slightest. In fact, it's pretty vital to a democracy. So, very much disagree there.
Like, well, he made mean tweets about Mueller. That's obstruction of justice.
That's not what people are saying.
He had Jeff Sessions say crazy shit to the American people. That's obstruction of justice. No, it's not. It didn't affect the probe in any way. Mueller himself saying so.
Well, so one thing you have to take into account is remember that Mueller had said in his report that basically Donald Trump tried multiple times to actually obstruct and either minimize the Mueller probe or to just get rid of it completely. And we'll look at a couple of things in the Mueller report that show that. But basically, what he was saying is that the reason why it wasn't obstructed or the probe wasn't minimized was because there were a bunch of people who were, lower in the ranks in his, in the FBI or the DOJ or whatever, who didn't listen to those orders. And I think one of them came out and was like, oh yeah, sometimes we just don't listen to his orders. So that's literally what he said. And so if we, let's let him keep talking here and we'll look at some of the things.
Mueller's like, yeah, Trump was an asshole. Being an asshole is not illegal, supposedly. No, I would say this. What's going to happen?
Okay, and then he ends up going on some political analysis, which I'm not interested in.
Be impeached for making a mean tweet or for, within the scope of his authority and the law, telling Jeff Sessions to say stuff that wasn't true to the American people is hilarious. If you were to impeach him, he wouldn't get removed from office for doing so. The idea that it's somehow terrible and horrible and abnormal for Trump to do that with Jeff Sessions is weird anyway, because that happens all the time. Dude, he's a politician. The fact that he was investigated for 2 years to the tune of $30 million and they found...
By the way, saying to the tune of $30 million while not mentioning that the entire investigation was funded by Manafort's all the money that he ended up giving up because of all the tax evasion and money laundering. It's probably something you should send in there, because I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to be like, oh, this is a really expensive thing that didn't result in anything. So probably should mention that.
Basically nothing associated with him 3 or 4 steps removed.
I mean, Flynn did get knocked out. Manafort got knocked out. Michael Cohen got knocked out. And his son would have been knocked out too, but he came to the conclusion that Donald Trump Jr. was so fucking stupid that he couldn't have known that he was committing a crime.
Is actually astonishing to me. It's actually astonishing to me that you didn't find a bunch of criminals gathered around him, because you've got a multi-billion...
You did find that. I don't understand. You did find that. That's exactly what you found. His personal longtime lawyer was caught on that. Paul Manafort, his campaign chair, was caught on that. What was Michael Flynn was the national security advisor, right? So it's like, yeah, they did. And again, his own son, the conclusion he came to was he was too dumb to know he was committing a crime.
$1 billion New York City magnate. Okay, that's trouble right there. He rubs elbows with Hollywood. He rubs elbows with DC. He is on good terms with certain people in the Kremlin, although not in the sense of collusion, which, by the way, again, as a businessman at the time, perfectly legal. You'd think that he'd have a lot of dirt around him. He should be more like the Clintons. He should have, like, fucking mafia members hanging around him. Apparently, that doesn't happen. I don't know how he manages to be successful while doing so. Maybe he's got some even worse people working for him that are just even more efficient. That is possible. I mean, he did people, and we can be assured of that, but for a hostile report not to find anything is pretty abnormal, I would say. So either you can get really suspicious about that, which I'm not really, or you can say, well, I guess Trump has tried his best to avoid conflict outside of the boardroom, which I think is commendable.
Very odd how you could possibly find a way to compliment Trump in all of this. Very weird stuff. Very odd stuff. But here's what I wanted to do. So I actually wanted to get into just a few of the things that were actually said here in the actual report. So he keeps on saying, what he keeps on saying is he's saying that, basically the Mueller report is irrelevant, or doesn't have any obstruction of anything because, he just sent out a mean tweet. Now, here are some of the things that actually happened. So this one says the evidence Mueller examined. Quote, substantial evidence, however, supports the conclusion that the president went further and, in fact, directed McGahn to call Rosenstein to have the special counsel removed. McGahn's clear recognition was that the president directed him to tell Rosenstein not only that conflicts existed, but also that, quote, Mueller has to go. McGahn is a credible witness with no motive to lie or exaggerate given the position he held in the White House. The president's sense of urgency and repeated request to McGahn to take immediate action on the weekend, quote, you got to do this, you got to call Rod, support McGahn's recollection that the president wanted the Department of Justice to take action to remove the special counsel. Quote, finally, the president had discussed, quote, knocking out Mueller, reflecting that the president connected the conflicts to a plan to remove the special counsel. Evidence shows that the president was not just seeking an examination of whether conflicts existed, but instead was looking to use asserted conflicts as a way to terminate the special counsel. When the president learned of the appointment of the special counsel on May 17, 2017, he expressed further concern about the investigation, saying, this is the end of my presidency. The president also faulted Sessions for recusing, saying, you were supposed to protect me. There's even more. The president sought to have Sessions announce that the president, quote, shouldn't have a special prosecutor/counsel, and that Sessions was going to, quote, meet with the special prosecutor to explain that this is very unfair, and let the special prosecutor move forward with an investigation election meddling for future elections so that nothing can happen in future elections. Quote, the president wanted Sessions to disregard his recusal from the investigation, which had followed from a formal DOJ ethics review, and have Sessions declare that he knew, quote, for a fact, that there were no Russians involved with the campaign because he was there. Taken together, the president's directives indicate that Sessions was being instructed to tell the special counsel to end the existing investigation into the president and his campaign, with the special counsel being permitted to, quote, move forward with investigating election meddling for future elections. Substantial evidence indicates that the president's effort to have Sessions limit the scope of the special counsel investigation to further election interference was intended to prevent further investigative scrutiny of the president's and his campaign's conduct. The manner in which the president acted provides additional evidence of his intent. Rather than rely on official channels, the president met with Lewandowski alone in the Oval Office. The president selected a loyal devotee outside the White House to deliver his message, supporting an inference that he was working outside White House channels, including McGahn, who had previously insisted contacting the DOJ about the special counsel. The president also did not contact the acting attorney general, who had just testified publicly that there was no cause to remove the special counsel. Instead, the president tried to use Sessions to restrict and redirect the special counsel's investigation when Sessions was recused and could not properly take action with it. So all of these things that I just read to you, which is a lot. I know that was a lot that I just read to you, but this is the stuff that tells us there was obviously an attempt. Now, just think about it like a murder, right? Intent matters. So if you try to commit that and fail, you don't just get off, like, it's not as if it never happened or that you're not in trouble. You had the intent to do it. The only problem is that you got lucky because your subordinates did not take orders. They didn't follow your orders. So that's the only reason why there was none of this committed. It wasn't about sending a mean tweet. It's about telling Don McGahn to literally have it removed, to literally take it down, and then getting Jeff Sessions to have the scope limited in attempt to, small in the scope of the special counsel and to basically get it removed and to just have it focus on future elections. So if you are an honest actor who is not biased by any partisanship whatsoever, right? If this were to come out about a Democratic president, this would be, honestly, I couldn't even imagine how crazy the right wing would go. I mean, it went really crazy when they found out about Bill Clinton getting a BJ in his office. But this is serious stuff, man. It's no joke, seriously. Obstruction of justice is not a joke. Only partisan hacks would think that it's a joke. It's a joke no matter who the president is who does it, because they are fundamentally misusing and abusing the power of their office, which is unacceptable, and it's certainly an impeachable offense. I think the articles of impeachment against Nixon, which were passed, I think those had obstruction of justice. I think they had abuse of power. They had a couple of other ones, I believe, too. I don't remember the other ones, but certainly these are impeachable offenses, but it's certainly not surprising that StyxHexenHammer here would defend his daddy Trump, regardless of the fact of all of this evidence of actual, obstruction of justice.